Okay, so just right here, David's anger was greatly aroused against the man, and he said unto Nathan, as the Lord lives, the man who has done this shall surely die, and he shall restore fourfold the lamb, because he did this thing and because he had no pity. Then Nathan said to David, you are the man. Thus says the Lord God of Israel, I anointed you king over Israel, and I delivered you from the hand of Saul. I gave you your master's house and your master's wives into your keeping, and I gave you the house of Israel and Judah. And if that had been too little, I also would have given you much more. Why have you despised the commandment of the Lord to do evil in his sight? You have killed Uriah the Hittite with the sword. You have taken his wife to be your wife, and have killed him with the sword of the people of Ammon. Now, therefore, the sword shall never depart from your house, because you have despised me, and have taken the wife of Uriah the Hittite to be your wife. Thus says the Lord, behold, I will raise up adversity against you from your own house, and I will take your wives before your eyes and give them to your neighbor. And he shall lie with your wives in the sight of this sun, for you did it secretly, but I will do this thing before all Israel, before the sun. So David did to Nathan, so David said to Nathan, I have sinned against the Lord. And Nathan said to David, the Lord also has put away your sin. You shall not die. However, because by this deed you have given great occasion to the enemies of the Lord to blaspheme the child who is born to you shall surely die. So you guys may be asking to me, what does this have to do with Proverbs and Solomon? If we go into the next section of Samuel, the next set of verses, we will come across verse 15, where it says, then Nathan departed to his house, and the Lord struck the child that Uriah's wife had bore to David, and it became ill. David therefore pleaded with God for the child, and David fasted and went in and lay on all night on the ground. So the elders of his house arose and went to him to raise him up from the ground, but he would not, nor did he eat food. Then on the seventh day it came to pass that the child died. And the servants of David were afraid to tell him that the child was dead, for they said, indeed, while the child was alive, we spoke to him, and he would not heed our voice. How can we tell him that the child is dead? He may do some harm. When David saw that his servants were whispering, David perceived that the child was dead. Therefore David said to his servants, is the child dead? And they said, he is dead. So David arose from the ground, washed and anointed himself, and changed his clothes. He went into the house of the Lord and worshipped. Then he went to his own house, and he requested that they set food before him, and he ate. Then his servant said to him, what is this that you have done? You have fasted and wept for the child while he was alive, but when the child died, you arose and ate food. And he said, while the child was alive, I fasted and wept, for I said, who can tell whether the Lord will be gracious to me, that the child may live? But now he is dead. Why should I fast? Can I bring him back again? I shall go to him, but he shall not return to me. So, again, I know you're asking me, Elliot, we've talked about David, we've talked about Uriah, we've talked about Bathsheba, we've talked about this baby that's died. What does that have to do with Solomon? I'm getting to that point. But before I move on for this, I really want people to know this last verse. John MacArthur did a series because there was several individuals who hold the belief, and it's complicated, but when we read John 3:16, right, we're accepting that free gift of God. And so the question will come up, if a child hasn't accepted that gift because they are without understanding, are they destined for hell? And there's a lot of people that believe there are. And I don't agree with that. And I believe that the Bible tells us that David is in heaven. And if we see what David's statement is right here, he says, can I bring him back again? ? I shall go to him, but he shall not return to me. I think David's reunited with his son, and I think this provides hope for individuals who lose a child at a young age, or they have a child with a disability who has no understanding, and I think God preserves them. So if there's ever that question, what happens when children die, I'm going to stick with this verse because I think that's what it's saying. But if it comes up to you guys, I just wanted you to know that it's there. So then What does this have to do with Solomon? Bam. David comforted Bathsheba, his wife. So Bathsheba was a woman who he had taken from Uriah. He did make her his wife after the fact because she was husbandless. Okay, they had lost the child, but David goes into her and lays with her, and she bears him a son and calls his name Solomon. So Solomon comes from Bathsheba, who was originally Uriah the Hittite's wife, that David did all these things with. So he's of the royal line, straight from David. Okay? And we see here, and the Lord loved him, and he's, yes, King David. Yeah, I know it kind of went roundabout on that, but so, and so this is interesting here. It says his name is Solomon. That's what they called him. And the Lord loved him. And he sent by the hand of Nathan the prophet, and he called his name Jedediah because of the Lord. So the family name was Solomon, but God calls him Jedediah, which may bear some insight into Lemuel when we get to the very last chapters of the book of Proverbs, which we'll talk about when we get there. So let's talk a little bit about Solomon, because we read quite a bit about Solomon in the rest of the Bible, and this will give us insight into the Proverbs that we're going to start. So, and Solomon made affinity with the Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, and took Pharaoh's daughter and brought her into the city of David. So at this point, Solomon has been made king, just so you guys are aware. And city of David, until he had made an end of building his own house and the house of the Lord and the wall of Jerusalem round about. Only the people sacrificed in high places, because there was no house built in the name of the Lord until those days. And Solomon loved the Lord, walking in statutes of David his father. Only he sacrificed and burnt incense. Only he sacrificed and burnt incense in high places. And the king went to Gibeon to sacrifice there, for that was the great high place. 1,000 burnt offerings did Solomon offer unto the altar. In Gibeon, the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream by night. And God said, ask what I shall give thee. And Solomon said, thou hast showed unto thy servant David my father great mercy, according as he walked before thee in truth and in righteousness and in uprightness of heart with thee. And thou hast kept for him this great kindness, that thou hast given him a son to sit on his throne, as it is this day. And now, O Lord my God, thou hast made thy servant king instead of David my father, and I am but a little child. I know not how to go out or come in. And thy servant is in the midst of thy people, which thou hast chosen, a great people that cannot be numbered or counted for multitude. Give therefore thy servant an understanding heart to judge the people, that I may discern between good and bad. For who is able to judge this thy so great a people? So what is Solomon asking for? God gives him a blank slate. You can ask for anything that you want. What does Solomon ask for?
Wisdom.
Yes, that's the one word I was looking for. He asked for wisdom.
That's it. Wisdom.
That's right. So, and the speech pleased the Lord, that Solomon had asked this thing. And God said unto him, because thou hast asked this thing, and hast not asked for thyself long life, nor riches for thyself, nor have you asked the life of your enemies, but has asked for understanding to discern judgment, behold, I have done according to thy words. Lo, I have given thee a wise and understanding heart, so that there is none like thee before thee, neither after thee shall there arise like unto thee. So he's going to be the wisest person to ever live, right? And I have also given thee that which thou hast not asked, both riches and honor, so that there shall not be any among the kings like unto thee all thy days. And if thou wilt walk in my ways to keep my statutes and my commandments, as thy father did walk, then I will lengthen thy days. And Solomon awoke, and behold, it was a dream. And he came to Jerusalem and stood before the ark of the covenant of the Lord, and offered up burnt offerings and peace offerings, and made a feast to all his servants. So this is where we learn about Solomon. Solomon's young. we learn that God gives him a supernatural gift of intelligence. He's wiser than any other king before, any other man that was on earth before this, okay? And God also gives him the things that he didn't ask for, all the riches, all those other items. And so as we read on into 1 Kings, we can read here about Solomon's wisdom. It says, I'm just going to jump in here to the middle. For he had dominion over all the region on this side of the river, from Tishpash to Ezah, over all the kings on the side of the river, and he had peace on all sides round about him. And Judah and Israel dwelt safely, every man under his vine and under his fig tree, from Dan even to Beersheba, all the days of Solomon. And Solomon had 40,000 stalls of horses for his chariots, and 12,000 horsemen, and those officers providing victual for King Solomon, and for all that came into Solomon's table, every man in his month. They lacked nothing. Barley also and straw for the horses and dromedaries brought they unto the place where the officers were, every man according to his charge. And God gave Solomon wisdom and understanding exceeding much, and largeness of heart, even as the sand of the sea, even of the sand that is on the seashore. And Solomon's wisdom excelled the wisdom of all the children of the east country and all the wisdom of Egypt, for he was wiser than all men, than Ethan the Ezrahite, than Heman, than Chalcol and Darda, the sons of Malal. And his fame was in all nations round about, and he spake 3,000 proverbs, and his songs were 1,005. And he spake of trees from the cedar that is in Lebanon, even unto the hyssop that springeth out of the wall. He spake also of beasts and of fowl and of creeping things and of fishes. And there came of all people to hear the wisdom of Solomon from all kings of the earth which had heard of his wisdom. So this is the text where we read that Solomon wrote Proverbs, right? And he wrote 3,000 of them. I believe there's 530 in what we're about to read that encompasses 31 chapters, which I think is like the core ones, so to speak. And that's going to get us into the book of Proverbs itself. And we're going to see Proverbs 1 give an explanation that it is from Solomon, and it's going to give us an understanding as to why we have the Proverbs. So, the Proverbs of Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel, to know wisdom and instruction, to perceive the words of understanding, to receive the instruction of wisdom, justice, judgment, and equity, to give prudence to the simple, to the young man, knowledge and discretion. A wise man will hear and increase learning, and a man of understanding will attain wise counsel, to understand a proverb and an enigma. The words of the wise and their riddles. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. One of the things that we'll see, there's a common theme throughout this, is that there is a positive and a negative. You either take the advice, and that is obviously the right thing to do. And if you don't take the advice, then you're a fool, right? That's what the Bible's saying in this instance. But I'm trying to remember the exact terminology of what was described to me as a proverb earlier. It is the ability to have the intellect to understand and thus putting it into practice. That is what wisdom is. There's plenty of people who are smart, but they have no application. You can have individuals who know the Bible better than anyone out there, and if they don't apply its concepts into their life, they're an idiot. That is not what wisdom is. So, where is the beginning of wisdom? It's through the fear of the Lord, right? The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. Can you guys name one individual out of the Bible? Well, we'll call it like one of the patriarchs who feared God, and give me an example. David feared God. Would you say Job? Job also feared God. I don't know that he was a patriarch, but good job. For me, I wrote down Abraham. And you would say, well, where do we see that Abraham had a healthy obedience and fear of God? He was willing to offer Isaac because that's what he was instructed to do. But on that hill, what was he told?
Like I said, not where he saw that lamb. And,
Yes. The angel of the Lord said to him that God will provide himself as a sacrifice. And that was a foreshadowing of what Christ was going to do for us. But the New Testament tells us that Abraham believed that God was going to resurrect Isaac from the dead because Abraham trusted that God's promise was through Isaac, and he was tested to that point. But God preserved Isaac, and that's one of those things. He had a healthy fear of the Lord, okay? So let's move on to verse 8. My son, and we'll notice that there's a theme again where I like this. John MacArthur had mentioned this. He says it's a lot like a father sitting down with his son to give him all the advice that he can, like a one and done advice, like don't do this, do this, don't do this, do this. And we see that Solomon is writing this to his son as well, and it's used for our instruction because the Holy Spirit put it here for us. So, my son, hear the instruction of your father and do not forsake the law of your mother, for they will be graceful, for there will be a graceful ornament on your head and chains about your neck. My son, if sinners entice you, do not consent. If they say, come with us, let us lie in wait to shed blood. Let us lurk secretly for the innocent without cause. Let us swallow them up like Sheol, swallow them alive like Sheol, and whole, like those who go down to the pit. We shall find all kinds of precious possessions. We shall fill our houses with spoil. Cast in your lot among us. Let us all have one purse. My son, do not walk in the way with them. Keep your foot from their path, for their feet run to evil, and they make haste to shed blood. Surely in vain the net is spread in the sight of any bird, but they lie in wait for their own blood. They lurk secretly for their own lives. So are the ways of everyone who is greedy for gain. It takes away the life of its owners. So, in this instance here, he's telling his son, don't go into peer pressure. You have a group of people here that want to go break into someone's house, and they're going to split it even right down the middle, and they're not concerned about it. What they don't realize is they're reaping evil upon themselves by doing it. And we see an also attribution to that when we see where greed is on the back side of that. So are the ways of everyone who is greedy for gain. It takes away the life of its owners. You ever see someone consumed by their work? They got to work 7 days a week in order to make that extra money so they can have the best boat or whatever it may be. You know what I mean? You name it. There's a fine line of being astute for what you have to where it's never enough. And then you'll notice that they'll become slaves to it. I heard this, I don't know who it was from, but I absolutely love it, is that money is an excellent servant, but it's a terrible master. And I think that's where this applies here. You could call that a proverb as well. So, Proverbs 1 verse 20, wisdom calls aloud outside. She raises her voice up in the open squares. She cries out in the chief concourses. At the openings of the gates in the city, she speaks her words. How long, you simple ones, will you love simplicity? For scorners delight in their scorning, and fools hate knowledge. Turn at my rebuke. Surely I will pour out my spirit on you. I will make my words known to you, because I have called and you refused. I have stretched out my hand, and no one regarded, because you disdained all my counsel, and would have none of my rebuke. I also will laugh at your calamity. I will mock when your terror comes like a storm, and your destruction comes like a whirlwind, when distress and anguish come upon you. Then they will call on me, but I will not answer. They will seek me diligently, but they will not find me, because they hated knowledge and did not choose the fear of the Lord. They would have none of my counsel and despised my every rebuke. Therefore they shall eat the fruit of their own way and be filled to the full with their own fancies. For the turning away of the simple will slay them, and the complacency of fools will destroy them. But whoever listens to me will dwell safely and will be secure without fear of evil. How many times have you guys tried to share with someone, if you don't believe in Christ, that you're going to hell, and they laugh at you? I mean, that's basically what our culture looks at. We watched a video last week of what was happening to a pastor who was just trying to baptize people. And there got signs up there that say, "Hail Satan." This is what's coming their way, like a whirlwind. And then they're going to reach out for help, but it's going to be too late. It's exactly what this is saying. Proverbs chapter 2. My son, if you receive my words and treasure my commands with you, so that you incline your ear to wisdom and apply your heart to understanding. Yes, if you cry out for discernment and lift up your voice for understanding, if you seek her as silver and search for her as for hidden treasures, then you will understand the fear of the Lord and find the knowledge of God. For the Lord gives wisdom. From his mouth come knowledge and understanding. He stores up sound wisdom for the upright. He is a shield to those who walk uprightly. He guards the paths of justice and preserves the way of his saints. Then you will understand righteousness and justice, equity, and every good path. When wisdom enters your heart and knowledge is pleasant for your soul, discretion will preserve you. Understanding will keep you, to deliver you from the way of evil, from the man who speaks perverse things, from those who leave the paths of uprightness to walk in the ways of darkness, who rejoice in doing evil and delight in the perversity of the wicked, whose ways are crooked and who are devious in their paths, to deliver you from the immoral women, from the seductress who flatters with her words, who forsakes the companion of her youth and forgets the covenant of her God. For her house leads down to death, and her paths to the dead. None who go to her return, nor do they regain the paths of life. So you may walk in the way of goodness and keep the paths of righteousness. For the upright will dwell in the land, and the blameless will remain in it. But the wicked will be cut off from the earth, and the unfaithful will be uprooted in it. So we're going to see a little bit more on that, about being enticed by that woman who leaves what her command from God was. Not in this one, but maybe in the next one. Yes. So my son, do not forget my law, but let your heart keep my commands. For length of days and long life and peace, they may be added to you. Let not mercy and truth forsake you. Bind them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart, and find favor and high esteem in the sight of God and man. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and depart from evil. It will be health to your flesh and strength to your bones. Honor the Lord with your possessions and with the first fruits of all your increase. So your barns will be filled with plenty, and your vats will overflow with new wine. My son, do not despise the chastening of the Lord, nor detest his correction. For whom the Lord loves, he corrects, just as a father the son in whom he delights. How many people have heard the phrase before, spare the rod, spoil the child? You ever heard that?
Oh, yeah.
That was a major thing from Dr. Phil. I remember my mom was like big time Dr. Phil. When I heard that, I was like, yeah, Mom, spare the rod. But what this verse is saying right here is that that's not a son you love. You correct someone that you love. That's the marks of a true friend, who's willing to tell you something that they don't want to hear because they care about you. So we see here, my son, do not despise the chastening of the Lord, nor detest his correction. For whom the Lord loves, he corrects, just as a father the son in whom he delights. So this message would go out to the kids, or the sons in this instant. If your dad is telling you not to do something, it's for good reason, and it's because he loves you. How many times you tell the kids, hey, don't drink and drive. Don't drink and drive because we don't want anything to happen to you. You know what I mean? That's a correction. Let's say they do it. You take the car away from them. They feel like they're being persecuted for something like that. But we're doing it because we love them. because we don't want them to kill someone else's family or hurt themselves because of harm. We're correcting them because that's what fathers do. You love your kids, you correct them. You don't want them to do dumb stuff. So, Proverbs 3, happy is the man who finds wisdom and the man who gains understanding. For her proceeds are better than the profits of silver, and her gain than fine gold. She is more precious than rubies, and all the things you may desire cannot compare with her. Length of days is in her right hand. Sorry, guys. In her left hand, riches and honor. Her ways are ways of pleasantness, and all her paths are peace. She is a tree of life to those who take hold of her, and happy are all who retain her. The Lord by wisdom founded the earth. By understanding he established the heavens. By his knowledge the depths were broken up, and the clouds dropped down from the dew. And clouds dropped down the dew. My son, let them not depart from your eyes. Keep sound wisdom and discretion, so they will be life to your soul and grace to your neck. Then you will walk safely in your way, and your foot will not stumble. When you lie down, you will not be afraid. Yes, you will lie down, and your sleep will be sweet. Do not be afraid of sudden terror, nor of trouble from the wicked when it comes. For the Lord will be your confidence, and will keep your foot from being caught. Do not withhold good from those to whom it is due, when it is in the power of your hand to do so. Do not say to your neighbor, go and come back, and tomorrow I will give it, when you have it with you. Okay, do you guys remember when we read in the book of Revelation, there was like an analogy where it talks about the neighbor who has a family member come in and he needs bread. So he goes over and he knocks on his neighbor's door, and the neighbor's yelling out, hey, my kids are in bed with me. Don't make me get up. And the guy keeps pounding on the door, and the guy ends up answering the door because of the profuse knocking, right? So if my neighbor Mike were to come over here and I'm in the middle of doing a project or something along those lines, and he needs some help with something, and it's within my reason to do it, to, give him the garage door open or something like that, to take whatever he needs, do it. That's the right thing to do. Just do it. Don't tell him, come back later. But just do it. I know that some things take precedent in our lives, but again, that's not what's being said here. It's if you have the ability to help out your neighbor, do it. And I think that's important. If it can come down to, if you know someone who needs something and they don't have food, and you know that they're not going to have food, or you're at church and you hear that someone has a need for some clothes, and you go back in your closet's filled with clothes, and you think, man, I hope someone gives something to them. No, that's something that's within your power, and you can help them. We'll just move on from there. Do not strive with a man without cause. Let's go back one. Do not say to your neighbor, go and come back tomorrow, and I will give it, when you have it with you. Do not devise evil against your neighbor, for he dwells by you for safety's sake. Do not strive with a man without cause, if he has done you no harm. Do not envy the oppressor, and choose none of his ways. For the perverse person is an abomination to the Lord, but his secret counsel is with the upright. The curse of the Lord is on the house of the wicked, but he blesses the home of the just. Surely he scorns the scornful, but gives grace to the humble. The wise shall inherit glory, but the shame shall be the legacy of fools. Hear, my children, the instruction of a father, and give attention to know understanding. For I give you good doctrine. Do not forsake my law. When I was my father's son, tender, and the only one in the sight of my mother, he also taught me and said to me, let your heart retain my words, keep my commands, and live. Get wisdom, get understanding. Do not forget nor turn away from the words of my mouth. Do not forsake her, and she will preserve you. Love her, and she will keep you. Wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore, get wisdom. And in all your getting, get understanding. Exalt her, and she will promote you. She will bring you honor when you embrace her. She will place on your head an ornament of grace. A crown of glory she will deliver you. Hear, my son, and receive my sayings, and the years of your life will be many. I have taught you in the way of wisdom. I have led you in the right paths. When you walk, your steps will not be hindered, and when you run, you will not stumble. Take firm hold of instruction and do not let go. Keep her, for she is your life. Do not enter the path of the wicked, and do not walk in the way of evil. Avoid it. Do not travel on it. Turn away from it and pass on. For they do not sleep unless they have done evil, and their sleep is taken away unless they make someone fall, for they eat the bread of wickedness and drink the wine of violence. But the path of the just is like the shining sun, that shines ever brighter unto the perfect day. The way of the wicked is like the darkness. They do not know what makes them stumble. My son, give attention to my words, incline your ear to my sayings. Do not let them depart from your eyes. Keep them in the midst of your hearts, for they are life to those who find them, and health to all their flesh. Keep your heart with all diligence, for out of it spring the issues of life. Put away from your deceitful mouth, and put perverse lips far from you. Let your eyes look straight ahead, and your eyelids right before you. Ponder the path of your feet, and let all your ways be established. Do not turn from the right or the left. Remove your foot from evil. Pay attention, my son, pay attention to my wisdom. Lend your ear to my understanding, that you may preserve discretion, and your lips may be knowledge, and may keep knowledge. For the lips of an immoral woman drip honey, and her mouth is smoother than oil. But in the end, she is bitter as wormwood, sharp as a two-edged sword. Her feet go down to death. Her steps lay hold of hell. Lest you ponder her path of life, her ways are unstable. You do not know them. Therefore, hear me now, my children, and do not depart from the words of my mouth. Remove your way far from her, and do not go near the door of her house, lest you give your honor to others and your ears to the cruel one, lest aliens be filled with your wealth, and your laborers go out of the house of a foreigner, and you mourn at last, when your flesh and your body are consumed, and say, how I have hated instruction, and my heart despised correction. So, does anyone remember? I believe it's the second commandment. Do you remember what the second commandment is that God wrote in the stone and gave to Moses?
Loving you, great yourself.
So I thought it was the second one, but yes, thou shalt not kill, steal, and love your neighbors yourself. But the one of the things that God wrote on the stone was adultery. Do not covet thy neighbor's wife. No adultery, right? And so we hear that this woman, he's trying to warn his sons to watch out for the immoral woman who looks like her lips are dripping with honey, right? Her mouth is smoother than oil. He's letting him know that the act is more bitter than wormwood, and she's sharper than a two-edged sword. So he's telling her not to go away to a perverse woman like this. So verses 13 through 23. I have not obeyed the voice of my teachers, nor inclined mine ear to those who instruct me. I was on the verge of total ruin, in the midst of the assembly of the congregation. Drink water from your own cistern, and running water from your own well. Should your fountains be dispersed abroad, streams of water in the streets, let them be your own, and not for strangers with you. Let your fountain be blessed, and rejoice with the wife of your youth, as a loving deer and a graceful doe. Let her breasts satisfy you at all times, and always be enraptured with her love. For why should you, my son, be enraptured by an immoral woman, and be embraced by the arms of a seductress? For the ways of man are before the eyes of the Lord, and he ponders all his paths. His own iniquities entrap the wicked man, and he is caught in the cords of his sin. He shall die for lack of instruction, and in the greatness of his folly he shall go astray. So, stick with the wife of your youth, love her breasts. I saw that. And just be stuck to one woman. Because we see what happens. He's warning of this, which is ironic. We'll talk about that at the very end, but move on. Proverbs chapter 6. My son, if you become... Go ahead. Did you hear me?
Oh,
Okay.
I thought we were supposed to read 1 to 5, but that's okay.
Yeah, I'm just going to keep going. We have time. The thing is Proverbs is written in such a way where it's there's not like we're expounding on a lot of the scripture. It's written so that you read it and you take its advice, you know? So for me, as I read this last scripture, I'm just checking the box. Do not cheat on my wife. Do not go to, don't do this. This is bad. Never stray away. Love her breasts. And I mean, the list just keeps going on. So Proverbs 6, my son, if you become surety for a friend, if you have shaken hands in a pledge for a stranger, you are snared by the words of your mouth. You are taken by the words of your mouth. So do this, my son, and deliver yourself, for you have come into the hand of your friend. Go and humble yourself. Plead with your friend. Give no sleep to your eyes, nor slumber to your eyelids. Deliver yourself like a gazelle from the hand of the hunter, and like a bird from the hand of the fowler. Go to the ant, you sluggard. Consider her ways, and be wise, which having no captain, overseer, or ruler, provides her supplies in the summer and gathers her food in the harvest. How long will you slumber, O sluggard? When will you arise from your sleep? A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to sleep. So shall your poverty come on you like a prowler, and your need like an armed man. A worthless person, a wicked man walks with a perverse mouth. He winks with his eyes, and he shuffles his feet. He points with his fingers. Perversity is in his heart. He devises evil continually. He sows discord. Therefore his calamity shall come on suddenly. Suddenly he shall be broken without remedy. These 6 things the Lord hates. Yes, 7 are an abomination to him. A proud look, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked plans, feet that are swift in running to evil, a false witness who speaks lies, and one who sows discord among brethren. So, going back to the beginning part of this, okay? This is addressed to the lazy person. When you're a sluggard, this person is being told to look at the ant, where there's no provision over the ant. There's no captain, there's no ruler, there's no manager, and yet the ant will gather its food to make it through the winter. And then look at how much more are you than an ant, right? So basically, get your butt up. Don't lay with a little bit of sleep and a little bit of your hands folded. He's calling him a worthless man. No, prepare for yourself. Prepare for a season, right? The second part of this, we learn about what God hates. And it's, man, just the things that we should reflect upon. Do you want to do things that God hates? I don't. I don't like the thought of that. And I think that from time to time I've done these. There's no doubt about it. I've definitely given a proud look or a lying tongue. I don't know that I've shed innocent blood, but a heart that devises wicked plans. When I was younger, we were making some bad decisions. You know what I mean? This is where it comes to where we teach our kids not to do these things, because these are the things that God hates, right? Don't be swift to run towards evil. Don't be a false witness who speaks lies. And don't be one who sows discord among brethren. Don't be an instigator. That's what that is right there. I've been that person before. I need to work on that. I don't want to do stuff that God hates. Check. Put that on the list. We're going to finish right here in chapter 6. So my son, keep your father's command, and do not forsake the law of your mother. Bind them continually upon your heart. Tie them around your neck. When you roam, they will lead you. When you sleep, they will keep you. And when you awake, they will speak with you. For the commandment is as a lamp, and the law a light. Reproofs of instruction are the way of life, to keep you from the evil woman, from a flattering tongue of a seductress. Do not lust after her beauty in your heart, nor let her allure you with her eyelids. For by means of a harlot, a man is reduced to a crust of bread. And an adulteress will prey upon his precious life. Can a man take fire to his bosom, and his clothes not be burned? Can one walk on hot coals, and his feet not be seared? So is he who goes in to his neighbor's wife. Whoever touches her shall not be innocent. People do not despise a thief if he steals to satisfy himself when he is starving. Yet when he is found, he must restore sevenfold. He may have to give up all the substance of his house. Whoever commits adultery with a woman lacks understanding. He who does so destroys his own soul. Wounds and dishonor he will get, and his reproach will not be wiped away. For jealousy is a husband's fury. Therefore, he will not spare in the day of vengeance. He will accept no recompense, nor will he be appeased, though you give many gifts. I'm going to shut it down there. Is there